Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, EIT Key Activities. My name is Angela Leamy, and I'm a media officer here at the EIT, and it is my pleasure to be your host today for today's webinar. That we have an exciting lineup of activities planned for you. Before we dive into the key activities, just to introduce this webinar, it's the third in our four-part series for the EIT Call for Proposals. So we welcome you back if this is your third time attending, and thank you for joining us. In our last webinar, we discussed the EIT machinery in detail. And in today's webinar, we're going to be discussing the main EIT key activities. If you missed one of our webinars in our series, you can watch them back on our YouTube page. One of my colleagues will post the link in the chat. And some housekeeping rules. So we want this series to be as interactive as possible. So please, we do invite you to submit all your questions using the Q&A function button through Zoom or on the chat. And our colleagues will also be active on the chat as well. And you can ask your questions at any time throughout the webinar or when the speakers are presenting. And all the questions that were submitted previously on Slido or that are going to be asked today will be answered either live during our webinar or at the end at our Q&A panel discussion. And if your question doesn't get answered, not to worry, we will post the answer on our frequently asked questions page on our dedicated section to the call for proposals. I would also like to let you know, as it says on the screen, that the slides will be made available and the links in the slides will be made available as well afterwards on our website. And the webinar is also being recorded, and that recording will be made available as our previous ones as well. So we have an exciting lineup of speakers that will join us today. As I mentioned, today's workshop, our webinar will focus on the three pillars of EIT support, being entrepreneurial education, innovation projects, and business creation and acceleration. And we have our experts here who will dive deep into those activities. And along the way, we'll be introducing you to different innovators that we have supported throughout those three different pillars. So get ready for some videos that we will be watching today. So let's get it kicked off to begin with. First, we want to introduce you to our education pillar, and we want to invite you to watch a short story about one of our EIT Label graduates, Peter. So enjoy.
Peter's always dreamed of starting his own business. To develop his skills and digital innovation knowledge, he enrolled in one of EIT's entrepreneurial education programs, the EIT Digital Master School. Through the program, he was exposed to entrepreneurial skills, had the chance to study in 2 different countries, was connected to industry players, and made like-minded friends. Together with his classmates, he applied what they learned in a series of hackathons, winning one with their device called Entremo that allows multiple patient monitoring. With it, caregivers can remotely measure vital signs of their patients from a distance, reducing their risk from infection. With their product in hand, Peter and his team applied to the EIT for more support. EIT Digital awarded them funding and secured them 4 partners to help scale the project, whilst EIT Health ensured they received medical mentorship. Within 6 months of EIT support, Entremo grew at a rapid pace. Peter and his team have already set up their own business, and they're working with different healthcare environments to start pilot tests of the product. And it all started with Peter joining one of EIT's entrepreneurial education programs. The EIT supports the creation of tomorrow's entrepreneurs. So if you think that's you, discover more about EIT entrepreneurship education programs and courses.
Wonderful. And now I would like to introduce you to Marianne Belko. He is the EIT Education Impact Officer, and he will present you some of what you saw in this video in more detail. Go ahead, Marianne.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Let me put on screen my presentation about the education activities. Just a second. Okay, so I hope you can see now my presentation. Thank you very much for joining, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce what EIT does in education. The EIT is the biggest ecosystem with also very strong focus on education, integrating education into the innovation ecosystem. And that means that we are focusing on powering future generations of entrepreneurs and innovators across Europe with a mission to deliver a unique brand of excellent education that is responsive to business and societal demand, focused on innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity, which are distinguished by the EIT label. Within our portfolio of activities, you can find really various types of programs and education modules and activities. These activities are always designed, executed, and delivered through the innovation communities and their education partners, universities and other type of education providers. And a strong element of our ecosystem is that knowledge innovation communities are very flexible and autonomous in a way how they design these activities. What does it mean concretely is that they are better placed to understand the needs in their thematic fields and in order to address the societal challenges, including the designing and executing the education activities. So you will find very wild, very robust education portfolio, which is really different depending on different contexts of different innovation community. Very strong focus still is on degree education, so focus on master and doctoral programs with strong innovation and entrepreneurship education, with strong industry involvement. These programs are designed to train specific skills and competencies in innovation and entrepreneurship. And there are other key elements present, like international cooperation, mobility, internships, and also supporting financially students to participate in this education through scholarships and fellowships. Beyond master and doctoral education, you will find in our innovation communities a lot of executive training and lifelong learning, postdoctoral courses, continuous professional development programs, because the innovation communities work also with set of actors in their fields that they support them in strengthening their innovation skills and competencies further than at the academic level. You will find a wealth of offerings in online education, massive open online courses, as well as other type of online learning modules available for wider public, but also a very strong presence of novelty education formats, informal type of education activities, and wider society learning and citizen engagement. Very strong element is also our alumni and outreach activities. Now, why we think that the EIT education is distinctive compared to other similar initiatives or programs is a list of very specific features, specific innovation and entrepreneurship activities within the education programs, with strong focus on entrepreneurship education, innovation education, but also highly integrated learning by doing curricula, strong focus on industry and business involvement at all stages of the process. So not only guest lectures from industry, but also taking on board all the industry needs when it comes to designing the programs, so it fits the needs of the ecosystem. Focus on international and trans-organizational mobility, so direct access to the non-academic world, industry and business, European dimension and openness to the world, direct access to other EIT activities, as you will hear, portfolio and other type of activities within the EIT ecosystem. It's very key that our students and learners within the education have access to these support and other types of activities, so they can further develop their innovation and entrepreneurship potential. And also they have direct access to becoming a member of EIT alumni community, so they to further support their professional development. This is all represented by our flagship initiative in education, which is called EIT Label, and there is a quality seal that EIT awards to excellent master and doctoral programs with strong focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. These programs are carried out by the universities and their faculties, but they are aligned with the specific requirements on learning outcomes and other criteria, and students graduating within validity period of the EIT Label programs then receive alongside of their standard diploma also EIT Label certificate, so they represent the brand of the EIT education. Very key element of this initiative of the EIT Label is focus on learning outcomes. So definition of skills and competencies that are present at these education programs. So students graduating from our master and doctoral education are endowed with these skills of competencies: entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity, intercultural skills and competencies, making value judgments and sustainability, and leadership. Now, as this is very important also that to understand how these programs come together, why EIT Label programs are distinctive in a sense that they are bridging the connection between the academic and industry and business cooperation. So there's a very strong and active role of industry in EIT labeled master and doctoral programs. This is a formal requirement for the programs. Students and companies are working really closely together on real life problems. So it's not just theoretical study, but they're really addressing some concrete needs provided by the industry and business partners. It's very focused challenge-based learning, which means that there are project-based courses within the programs, including intensive summer schools, but also students have access to internships at the industry and business partners. And there is also a strong element of practical final thesis. So the consultants or these programs are from both academic and industry, academic world and industry partners. But also, so this is a very strong element of cooperation between industry and universities and academic world. And we believe that this is also very interesting for industry partners, because by participating in the ecosystem, they have access to a strong pool of excellent talent. They have access to networks and knowledge base and skills competencies that they can use in their business world. So that is introduction of EIT Label, and in the new programming period, the EIT is now trying to use this experience with great programs and elevating what we have achieved so far also at more institutional level. So we introduce a new initiative, higher education initiative, with focus on innovation capacity building for higher education. And the objective is to create systemic impact engaging higher education institutions and universities at institutional level. So not only designing great programs, but really trying to steer institutional change in terms of strengthening entrepreneurial innovation capacity and strengthening their integration of universities and higher education institutions in their local innovation ecosystems. Currently, we launched this initiative with first call for projects in summer. Earlier this year, we have 24 first projects selected, which are being implemented now. And in November, we have opened a second call for proposal. I would use this opportunity and invite you for coming webinars and info sessions on, for 7th, 8th, and 10th December. The ambition now with this second call is to select 40 more projects for 2 years starting in July 2022. This call is open until end of February, but you will find all the details on dedicated webpage, and I believe my colleagues will post a link to the webpage in the chat. And should you have any further questions or any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Marianne, for that detailed presentation. One follow-up question, and then I want to invite our audience to please do ask questions, and you'll be back at the Q&A discussion at the end. So one follow-up, because our audience members are writing proposals currently, maybe it'd be interesting for them to hear what are the do's and don'ts of building up the education portfolio of EIT Culture and Creativity.
For the new call and for the kick, I would say there is already strong experience in how these consortia are becoming effective. For education portfolio, it's really important to focus on strong link with other, let's say, non-education partners. So how you plan to put together partners from different worlds. So there is not just only on paper, but there's really a promise of strong ecosystem and strong connection between academic and non-academic world. How to plan the future programs with strong presence of industry and business partners, how to invite them and actually engage them in all stages of the education process, not as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So not only to include and invite the industry and business partners to provide some guest lectures, but to make sure that there's a appetite for industry partners, inviting them to be member of the program consortia, to be member of the program committees when the programs are designing, to reach out to them and ask for what are the needs in terms of skills and competencies and structure of the education program, so it can be adapted and it can be really effective. So that's very strong element. Another example would be the openness to the students and building the programs with the ambition of becoming sustainable in a long run. EIT provides, let's say, financial support in building up the ecosystem and portfolio of activities. But when designing the programs, it will be very important to have idea and vision of how these programs are becoming sustainable in a long run. And beyond academic education, it's also very important to put together strong proposal, identifying the needs in their thematic area, and putting together proposal built on needs analysis. I would say to really understand the field when designing the education programs and understand the market. Obviously, that's very important. And last but not least, and I think even the most important thing, is to have in mind also future impact. So how are we designing this consortia that we really aim in the long term to build a strong impact in what EIT wants to achieve in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship?
Perfect, thank you. Those are all great pieces of advice. And we invite everyone to go on our website under Education Activities, where you can learn lots more about our existing programs for inspiration. So thank you, Marianne. You will be back at the end of the session for the Q&A. And now we're going to move on to our second pillar, which is our core activity of innovation projects. So we invite you to watch another video where you get to meet one of our innovators named Marc Julian.
When Marc joined Diaboloop, a company specializing in automated type 1 diabetes management, He knew that they needed to create a solution for kids. The problem was they didn't have the resources required. So to work on their children's product, they needed expert partners and financing. And with EIT Health, they got it. Through EIT Health's work, they found their partners, a university in Belgium and a research institute in Germany. This cross-border cooperation helped speed up the research and development of the children's product, D for Kids. EIT Health also helped the partners secure financing for their product and increase their profile. Now, D for Kids is in the process of getting certified, and once it does, it will be able to help children across Europe manage their diabetes. Innovation is at the heart of what D for Kids does. Is it at the core of what you do? Find out how the EIT can help you connect with the perfect partnership.
Excellent, thank you. Now we welcome Michał Korzeniski. He's the head of our Impact section here at the EIT to give us an introduction of our innovation activities.
Thank you very much, Angela. Good morning to everyone. I will share the screen with presentation. Hopefully you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. It's perfect. Maybe if you put in the... Got it.
Yes,
yeah.
super. So once again, good morning, everyone. For the next few minutes, I will present our innovation activities, how KIC structure activities, how the portfolio of activities is implemented. But let me start first with explaining what we mean by innovation activities implemented by knowledge innovation communities. So when we're talking about the EIT program, we are not talking about research activities. We are talking about innovation activities. That means that we expect that activities which are, first of all, developed, then later on implemented under innovation pillars of the KICs have to result in products and services that are ready to be put on the market. So yes, you can run research activities, but those research activities have to contribute in development of new products and services. That's why we call it innovation program. There are two other important aspects that have to be taken when you are talking about EIT innovation activities. The first one is transdisciplinary and multicultural aspects. What actually means that all innovation activities have to adopt so-called knowledge triangle innovation approach when they are designing and implementing activities. What do we mean by knowledge triangle integration approach? It's about bringing different type of partners, different type of institutions which represent knowledge triangle, which is education, which is research and business. Of course, you might also add some other partners which are also may play important role in developing innovation activities in your particular case, like administration units, like association of customers and clients, etc., etc. The second important element which have to be taken into consideration when we are referring to innovation activities is pan-European dimension of the activities. This means that activities cannot be implemented in one country. Activities have to have partners coming from different countries, at least from 2 different countries. This is very important to ensure that we are spreading our impact across Europe, and we are using different type of resources which are available in different regions and in different countries. Coming to implementation of innovation activities, following the EIT model, knowledge innovation communities have a huge degree of autonomy in defining the operational models. This also means that it's up to the KIC how they are defining the selection, the monitoring, the implementation procedures. However, they have to follow certain rules. They have to follow certain rules which have to create conditions that all those activities are aligned with what is expected from the EIT and strategic objectives of the EIT. So the activities, for example, have to be selected through the calls in the transparent manner, which are ensuring that equal treatment principle is met. Also, those activities, the selection processes, have to meet certain requirements, which are EIT-driven requirements, like EIT innovation principles. I will say a few words about these principles in a moment, but also have to be aligned with the overall framework of Horizon Europe. What is value added of the EIT innovation activities, and why this instrument is attractive for applicants and for all partners to be involved with the communities? So first of all, innovation communities, KICs, go beyond the basic administration of funding. So we expect that knowledge innovation communities support applicants in creating good consortia, helping them to find proper partners, and later on, they are helping them elevating impact from the activities they are implementing, linking them also with potential customers, with potential collaborators, linking them with resources that they may be lacking, linking them with financial resources, but also linking them with human resources. Secondly, what is important that innovation activities are not supposed to be just separate activities. They have to create part of something bigger. They have to be part of the portfolio of activities which are interlinked, and together they are bringing better impact. This is very important to look for the synergies among the similar or complementary activities that can help consortia to be more successful in developing their products and services, and what is also important, to scaling up the market success. Thirdly, knowledge innovation communities have one very important feature and characteristic that is very important from the point of view of our strategic objectives and the way how we can react towards new challenges. Knowledge innovation communities, through the fact they are very flexible, they may quickly react and be responsive to emerging market and societal trends and needs. One of the examples of such response came from the last year, when the knowledge innovation communities created in a very short time, dedicated support mechanism for projects, innovation projects, responding to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. So within 2 months, 60 million euro was mobilized from the EIT funds, and knowledge innovation communities selected actions that were implemented in the 6 months, providing very tangible outcomes. Last slide, I mentioned about certain EIT requirements that KICs have to take into consideration when they are selecting activities and when they are shaping portfolio of innovation activities. There are 4 principles that KICs have to take into consideration. The first one is about selecting innovation activities. So we expect that you're gonna to come up with products and services as the end results of your actions. This is important, and no other activity should be eligible under the EIT scheme when we are talking about the innovation activities. The second one is commercialization element. That, of course, we indicate and we request that all the products that are developed in order to be successful and considered as a product have to be launched on the market. And this also links with another element that is critical from the point of view of how the EIT model works, that this commercialization strategy should be very closely linked with so-called financial sustainability mechanism. So mechanism which is ensuring that success from launching the products and services also are benefiting knowledge innovation communities. The third principle is about dissemination communication. Communication is a must. Dissemination is also the must. It can be a little bit different comparing to research projects because we are talking about the trade secrets, though still the dissemination activities should be taken very seriously into consideration when we talk about the innovation activities for the projects that may fail, or for the projects which are maybe successful but have still potential for scaling up and growing. So we expect that each activity has very solid dissemination communication plan. Last but not least, mandatory co-funding. We do expect that all innovation activities are also implemented with a close collaboration with business sector. This means that we expect that these business champions, business leaders, are bringing their own sources to ensure the commitment and proper market drive of what is implemented under innovation scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michał. One follow-up questions, and just a side note, we love the engagement that's on our chat, so keep it coming with the questions, please. So you mentioned financial sustainability and commercializations. Can you tell us concretely what that means? Is this equity or revenues? What do you have in mind?
It very much depends on the KIC, and KICs having autonomy have also freedom to decide what kind of financial sustainability scheme they want to propose to the partners. KICs have different approaches. Some KICs are very prescriptive, some of them are much more flexible. But what is actually the essence of this principle is that when you are launching the product on the market, and when you are receiving incomes which are generated from the product sale or from the services that have been developed, that some success also is shared with the KIC, which was the main funder of this activity. Different modalities can be applied, very much depending on the strategic focus of the KIC. Depending on the sector approach, because you may imagine that in different sectors you may have a little bit different considerations making those modalities operational. For example, when you want to have share in some patent rights, this probably matters more in the sectors like energy or raw materials, while equity stakes are more important in the digital sector. But the number of instruments, the financial sustainability instruments varies and can be from revenue schemes, so it means some percentage of the revenues generated from the products, equity takes if we are talking about new startups that are arising from the innovation activities, some shares in IP rights that are developed by the projects.
Perfect. Okay, so it's very flexible in its approach. Thank you, Michał. And Michał will be back before the Q&A period as well, because he'll talk to us about EIT joint activities or cross-KIC. And when we mention KIC, we mean Knowledge and Innovation Community, what EIT Culture and Creativity will become. So thank you, Michał. We'll see you back shortly. And now we'll move on to our third pillar of support, which is business creation. And we have a video featuring an entrepreneur and engineer, Christina. So enjoy.
As an engineer, Christina finds solutions to problems. So when she discovered the environmental impact of the shipping industry, she knew there had to be a better way. She co-founded Bound for Blue to develop solutions for climate-friendly, healthy shipping. The company applied to join EIT's Climate Kicks Business Accelerator program, where startups are taken through an 18-month program to grow great ideas and products into greater businesses. Bound for Blue had already designed a great idea, a system that uses wind to push ships forward, reducing the main engine power required, fuel consumption, and pollutants released into the environment. But Christina felt they lacked the knowledge needed to run a growing business. With the EIT community support, that all changed. Through the acceleration program, Bound for Blue got the knowledge they needed to properly segment their market and find the right customers. They also benefited from financing, mentoring, training, and access to a global network of investors, all of which helped them scale up their technology and gave them the boost they needed on the market. Thanks to the accelerator program, Bound for Blue's cells are about to be implemented onto vessels, and within 5 years, they'll enable savings of 590,000 tons of CO2 emissions. Have you got a promising business idea? Do you want to scale your business? Then join the EIT Community's business creation and acceleration programs, where we connect, grow, and boost your businesses.
Perfect. And to walk us through the EIT business creation and acceleration activities, we have Laurent Roux with us. He is the Entrepreneurship Impact Officer.
Thank you, Angela, and good morning, everybody. And I will share my screen with you. Yes. So, business creation acceleration, the third pillar of the EIT main activities, very complementary actually with what my colleagues presented in education and innovation before. So now I'll just give you some numbers, some facts, some details on our programs. It's very diverse actually. So really we serve all maturity level of companies and innovators and entrepreneurs. When I say we, I mean the EIT KICs, so the 8 innovation committees we have currently, and then this upcoming one will also become part of the family and delivering business creation activities. So we serve, from pre-incubation, really at the idea stage, all the way to the creation of the startup, and then when these companies grow, they become scale-ups and even start raising significant amount of money, external funding from investors that make them Series A, Series B, on their way to becoming unicorns, hopefully. So these are all served by the business creation and acceleration services of the KICs. We also serve innovation projects, as mentioned by Michal. We're very close to industry. Many partners of KICs are industry-based, and they participate also in these acceleration services. And we have a large number of SMEs that we support as well. So what the KICs provide is really tailor-made. It's based on the needs of the entrepreneurs and innovators, and even the more mature companies, with mentoring, business coaching, but also developing further really their business model, their business plan. Really also what is possible through these innovation committees is to very quickly meet the relevant customers or partners, business partners, because these are the partners of the innovation committees, and you wouldn't be able to meet them so directly or at the right level, at the right entry point, if you were not part of the innovation communities, being served as one of the beneficiaries of the business creation and acceleration services. And really, we give you access also as a startup and scale up, and these programs are designed for that, to access to new technologies. You can explore new markets. So many companies join us from their home market, and we help them through the pan-European network of the EIT KICs and their offices and their business creation activities. They can quickly scale out of the home market and go on to new market, new customers across Europe. Obviously, the KICs are specialized. So it's true that startups join usually a particular KIC in their field. Obviously, there is also overlap between our innovation communities. So there's a possibility for startup and scale up to start with one KIC and go on to another KIC to further their growth. And then we have many successful examples where companies join, for example, the EIT Climate KIC, and then went on later on after a few years to join EIT Energy, and now they're very successful in their business. And I think this was mentioned in the video, but obviously the innovation committees are very well connected to investors of all sorts. So at the regional, national level, the angels, business angels that can help companies in their early days, but also the venture capital investors, specialized again per field. So we have a strong community of VCs in the health sector, in the energy sector, and companies are prepared by the innovation committees to be investor ready. And then they are introduced to these investors and accompanied along the way, hopefully to a closing deal of further financing from these investors. The last thing I would like to mention on the EIT community and the business creation and acceleration services is usually, that's what we see, many startup and scale up, they join us not just for one program, but they tend to stay with the community and join several programs one after the other, or they become also sometimes partners of the KICs as an innovation project partner, and it helps them. And we're very grateful for that. In a way, this is a lifelong opportunity for these companies to join the EIT. There's also education opportunities for the founders of the companies. So really, we have these portfolio of activities that are integrated in a way on offer for the startup and scale up that join the EIT. Now, if we can talk about the results for a second for the last, let's say, 10 years or plus that EIT exists, to give you an idea of the scope of the investment that we put into business creation and acceleration services. It's around 60 million euro per year across the 8 innovation communities. So it's quite significant. The last 10 years plus, we've supported more than 3,800 companies of all maturity level, including a few unicorns like Lilium Technologies or Northvolt, or there are a few others that are in the pipeline to become unicorns at European level. And we help them in early days through EIT Climate Kick, EIT Energy, EIT Digital, and many other kicks supported these companies. Obviously, as Michal said, also an important part of the work of the EIT is to launch new product, new services on the market. And out of these business creation activities, more than 1,500 innovative products have been launched on the market and sold. This is the important part, and made some revenues for the companies that participated, but also in instances for the KICs as well that participated in the support of the launching these new products. I was mentioning also the external funding raised by our supported startup and scale up, which is a kind of a key metric that we follow very closely. We think it measures somewhat the success of our acceleration programs, and close to 4 billion euro have been raised by supported startup and scale up by the EIT. The strong link in part is due to the strong link to investors that we have, that the KICs have across Europe. And really they can introduce these companies at the right time, and also the investors are able to follow them as they mature. So it's not just meeting them randomly at one event, but it's really, we have online platforms where the startups can share their documentation with investors as they mature, and investors can then check regularly or ask more questions, do the due diligence part that is needed when external investors fund growing companies. I won't touch too much about the regional innovation scheme part of EIT activities. My colleague Luc will present in more details, but it's also something we do there in terms of business creation, acceleration, really early stages of companies that are born out of these countries that are part of the regional innovation scheme, and then we take them on to the European level, and Luc will go into more details. What we see just in terms of result as well is we see several companies that have been supported by KICs being acquired by partners of KICs when they are at the right growth level. That's happening in the energy sector, that's happening probably in the health sector at times as well. We'd like to see this. It's a nice exit for these companies, and usually also has a financial stability reward for the KIC that helped, and it helps those companies, of course, go to the next level, being part of a bigger European level, large company, for example. Finally, EIT Community is featured regularly on Forbes 30 under 30 at the European level. So many of our innovators and entrepreneurs that we support make it. Usually a good amount of these 30 every year are EIT supported. And we participate with them in many leading European and national tech events. So they get exposed to customers, to investors, to partners. And we also organize for them trade missions outside of Europe with European Commission services. Now, just to conclude, so on the big part of the activity is also geared towards the support of women entrepreneurs and innovators. We recognize this as obviously it's a challenge for Europe. It has been for many years, but we are working with our European Commission partners and also our KICs to really try to improve the situation in the gender participation of female entrepreneurs and innovators in activities, and for them to successfully, in my case, develop and grow successful companies at the European level. So we are doing, you know, kind of this twofold approach. One is really to increase the gender balance, so to make sure that there are no barriers, no challenges, extra challenges for women to be supported, to access funding, activities. So all the pillars of the EIT look at this very closely on how they select beneficiaries of activities, to make sure that indeed it's a level playing field, but also at times additional programs are put forward for specifically for women entrepreneurs, women-led companies, and all the kicks are really active there. And obviously, you know, when these companies grow, it's also about making sure that the right level of women, or balanced level of women, is hired in senior positions, so that you know, the diversity is ensured. And we believe that this leads to better results, companies growing faster, making better decisions, and ultimately, you know, having a better impact for the EIT. So the support, you know, these activities are not new. They've been running since 2016 at EIT, and also the kicks have been participating. So it's really a platform for supporting women entrepreneurs and innovators. Again, as I was saying, by participating also in close activities with our commission partners and the kicks and their partners. So we had early success. I mean, we have EIT Women Awards, for example. It's an award that is given to a leading woman innovator of the innovation communities every year. They are featured, obviously, these leading women and entrepreneurs and innovators are featured in as many activities as possible. And we really try to disseminate their success stories to inspire the next generation. So it's run to dedicated communication activities, newsletters, videos, obviously speaking engagement, and also we try to have as many balance hiring selection panels as possible, and also the management of the kicks have to be balanced, and so on. So it's really an aspect we look at very, very closely. And there, of course, we have many success stories as well, and I'll finish on that. So again, this list of Forbes 30 under 30 at European level has featured many of the women leaders and innovators of the EIT. We have the EIT Women Awards. So I invite you to check out the EIT website. There's a dedicated section for this. You can see who are these winners of the last years, what they've gone on to do. Many of them have built really successful companies and hired more people, and have been really, some of them becoming leaders at European level. And then the kicks participate, so they have dedicated activities to also for the younger generation of female entrepreneurs and innovators. So that's a little bit more on the education side, but we also try to inspire the young female entrepreneurs of, let's say, 12 to 18 years old. They participate in dedicated workshops with technology partners, and really to, you know, already expose them and inspire them into innovation and entrepreneurship related careers. And yeah, of course, we have a very strong EIT alumni communities, and many of them are female entrepreneurs and innovators, and they have a dedicated network within the network to support each other, to access additional funding, coaching, grow, and really overcome any challenge that may remain at the European level. So EIT is really behind them on that. And yeah, that will be it for today. So thanks for listening. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Laurent. And just a side note, the innovator you saw in our video, Christina, was previously our EIT Women Awards winner. So that's great. And one follow-up question, Laurent, is where do you find, or where do the kicks find in their experience, most of these startups coming from who are applying to these business creation programs?
So yeah, thank you for the question, Angie. I think really it's a wide range of applicants we receive from all over Europe. First of all, we have a complete footprint, so we don't only look at a few countries, but we cover the entire Europe. Secondly, kicks have many programs that are geared towards different maturity level of entrepreneurs and startup. So from the early stage to more scale-ups type of companies. So the kicks, they do it in different ways. First of all, they have open calls for these programs to find beneficiaries. So they really select them based on excellence, and they do a lot of due diligence and selection activities to make sure that the best entrepreneurs enter these programs. That's one way to get into a KIC. Secondly, I think KICs also organize annual startup competition at European level, first at regional, then national, then European level. So this is also another way for a particular company to get into one of the KIC, and then they get supported further. KICs also have a long history, let's say a long track record. Many of them have been in existence for more than 10 years. So they have a wide network on the ground with their own business creation developers, but also partners that can refer startups that are emerging from, let's say, national programs into going possibly into a European level. So that's one way also for companies to enter KICs. Yeah, and then very active. I think the KICs are really scouting, participating themselves in, like I was saying, EU level tech events. So they can identify or be visible to these companies. Companies approach the KICs, and then there's a open selection process that all companies have to go through. Yeah, so that's one part. Of course, I said it before, but what we like to see is when a company stay with us for more than just one program. It's happening a lot. So as they grow, they stay with a particular KIC that selected them initially, or they go on to another KIC to get further support. As they really become European leaders. So it's nice to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And they see the added value of our activities and interventions. So thank you. And I just want to remind everyone that Laurent will be back in a short while to answer the Q&A panel discussion. And we see questions are coming in. If we didn't directly address them on the chat, then we're probably saving them for this Q&A section. So thank you for your patience. And next, throughout these series, we've been introducing you to young innovators and young European creatives, because at the EIT, it's very important for us to create an ecosystem where the innovator is at the heart of it. So it's always important when putting together a proposal to remember who are going to be the beneficiaries of this community, and who we will support together. So we've already introduced you to young creatives from the Netherlands and Hungary, and now we have the pleasure of introducing you to Patricia Kerr, who is a young Austrian innovator and creative.
Continuously diving into a world of experiences, looking at new solutions to old problems and creating a new reality through that. Supporting open-minded, critical communities whilst establishing a supportive framework for business cases. Innovation is necessary.
Thank you, Patricia. And now that we have introduced our key activities, so entrepreneur education, innovation projects, and business creation, we would also like to highlight two other key activities that build on these core key pillars. And this is being the Regional Innovation Scheme, or RIS, and the other one being Joint EIT Community Activities, or CrossKIC. And so first, we'll start with the RIS, the Regional Innovation Scheme. As you can probably tell, we love an acronym here at the EIT. So we'll have Luke Incrovaya, who is our strategy officer, to tell us more about the RIS program.
Thank you very much, Angela. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today, and I'll start by greeting everyone. I know we have quite a good attendance today, and I'm reaching out to you from rather cold but very sunny Budapest. I'll start my PowerPoint presentation here. Please bear with me while I go into presentation mode. Is that clear for everyone?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm here to introduce you to the EIT Regional Innovation Scheme, or the EIT RIS, as we call it here at the EIT. The EIT RIS builds on what you have heard from Marianne, Laurent, and Michal, and closely interlocks with the EIT's three main core activities. So what is the EIT RIS? Why was it set up? So the EIT RIS was initially launched in 2014 as a tailored scheme to enhance the innovation capacity of countries and regions classed as moderate and modest innovators according to the annual European Innovation Scoreboard. The EIT is an integral part of Horizon Europe and the EU framework programs for research and innovation. Therefore, excellence remains our only selection criteria. However, we also have a mandate to boost innovation capacity across Europe, a pan-European mandate to do so, and this is exactly where the EIT RIS came in. The EIT RIS aims to help those countries which are lagging behind in terms of innovation and giving them a leg up in order to help those innovation ecosystems reach the same capacity as their more innovation advanced peers in Europe. So the initial approach in the first 7 years of the EIT RIS existence was that this would aim at sharing good practices of knowledge triangle integration, which lies at the very core of what we do here at the EIT, but also to outreach, raise awareness, and to a great extent, widen participation in our network. This was done through a number of ways, but one of the main channels of this was the establishment of what we call RIS hubs. These are offices based across the targeted countries which spearhead our activities there. During the same period, we also aim to seek synergies with the smart specialization strategies. For those of you who are unaware, these are strategies implemented across countries and regions in Europe, aimed at highlighting those areas where research and innovation can be strongest. Okay, so the idea is that we would implement activities which are in full complementarity with those strategies already being developed in those countries. So how is the EIT RIS implemented? First and foremost, also echoing what some of my colleagues have already said earlier today, and fully in line with the EIT's pretty unique innovation model, which truly implements a bottom-up, innovate and knows best principle. The EIT steers the EIT RIS or provides strategic guidance to the KICs, but the KICs are very much free or have a high degree of freedom, to be more precise, in terms of how they implement the EIT RIS, as long as those activities fully contribute to the objectives of the EIT RIS, the EIT, and the EU more broadly. I have on this slide highlighted a number of activities by means of which the EIT RIS has been implemented over the past years. I will not go through them one by one, but as you can see, the EIT RIS first and foremost has been very much geared towards capacity building, towards spreading excellence. Also, there are a number of widening participation elements, but building capacity has been at the forefront of what we do. You can also see that our activities are always geared towards the three sides of the knowledge triangle, which is, again, at the core of what we do. This is merely to give you some examples of how the EIT RIS has been implemented over the past years. What have we achieved so far? So, to date, or at least over its first years of implementation, the average amount of funding dedicated to the EIT RIS has hovered around 4%. 4% of the total grant which the EIT has given to the KICs. I think you will agree this is not a very significant amount. However, yet with this relatively small amount, the EIT RIS has helped to really significantly change the spread of the EIT's activities across Europe, now ensuring that we are truly pan-European in our activities. And the map you see on the right-hand side, you see those green dots. Those green dots represent the RIS hubs we have established across Europe in every single EU member state, which is eligible for the EIT RIS, but also beyond, with hubs established in Turkey and also in the Western Balkans. I'll go to the next slide to maybe quantify exactly what I'm talking about when we say spreading or growing our activities. The number of partners from RIS countries between 2014 and 2019 increased by over 600%, with the number increasing even further by the end of the programming period in 2020. Also, the number of countries which have joined us, thanks to the RIS, has increased by over 800%. The same level of increase has also been seen in the total number of partners, this standing at 14% in 2019. Again, this number is now even higher, with our aim that this will be even very significantly higher over the next years. And also in terms of number of funding, the amount of funding going to risk countries, as you can see there, the amount increasing threefold. Also the number of startups making, early stage startups making a huge impact, of course, on the local ecosystems there. This is, again, I want to highlight, with the EIT risk being mainly an outreach capacity building tool, and with the amount of funding being relatively limited. Now, all this will change, and will change, of course, for the better. As part of the interinstitutional negotiations, which concluded earlier this year, the EIT was given an enhanced mandate when it comes to its regional capacity building, regional innovation, boosting capacity as far as objectives go. And this will mainly be implemented through an enhanced EIT risk. How enhanced? Well, first and foremost, let's talk about eligibility. So far, the EIT has had a relative degree of freedom in terms of what constitutes a risk country. We mainly use European Innovation Scoreboard, as I mentioned earlier, but we also use a number of other tools. Now, the co-legislators have enshrined the European Innovation Scoreboard as the sole selection criteria for eligibility in terms of the EIT risk, and therefore will continue to support moderate and modest innovative member states and eligible Horizon Europe associating countries. However, those countries which are not listed in the European Innovation Scoreboard are not eligible. This is, of course, not the case for any EU member states, but it may impact some Horizon Europe associated countries. In addition, we will also support, starting from this year, the EU outermost regions. These are those outermost regions which are delineated within the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. How will the approach change? Well, first and foremost, the EIT risk will be fully integrated within the core activities of the EIT KICs. So it will not only be an outreach activity, but will basically be a cross-cutting activity across all activities the EIT KICs implement. We will, of course, continue to implement capacity building activities and also foster closer interaction with local knowledge triangle innovation actors and their activities. However, widening participation now takes a center stage, or is even more important than it was previously. We will continue to establish risk hubs, and through these risk hubs, we aim to implement a place-based approach, meaning that for each country which is eligible for the EIT risk, you have on the right-hand side a map, and you can see the green countries to delineate those countries which are eligible. In those countries, through our risk hubs, our boots on the ground, something which is very, very unique to the EIT, I think, in terms of the other EU instruments currently being implemented, we can implement a place-based approach. We will further strengthen our smart specialization strategies and additionally try to also implement synergies and leverage funding, particularly when it comes to the European structural and investment funds. We will also target complementarities with the instrument for pre-accession assistance in those countries where this is implemented. In terms of resources, this will also increase, and I think this is where the real difference will lie. We will now be investing between 10 and 15% of the EIT's grant to EIT risk activities. Additionally, the co-funding rate for EIT risk can be up to 100%, with the aim of making these activities as attractive as possible to participants. So if you want to know more in terms of how exactly the EIT risk will be implemented over the next years, the nuts and bolts, of course, we don't have time to go through all the details, but if you're interested in those details, we have prepared an implementation framework, which will help guide the KICs in implementing the EIT risk over the next years. The document is on the website, and you can access it on the URL, which I believe will be shared with you on the chat, and also once these PowerPoint presentations are made public. So I'm nearly ready. I would just beg 1 or 2 more minutes. Just to highlight that while the majority of risk activities are implemented by the KICs in an individual basis, this is not the sole way how this is done. In fact, the EIT risk is seen as one of those key areas where the KICs coming together can have a massive added value in bringing better impact, more results, and basically having an impact on the daily lives of citizens. Michal will go into detail after me in terms of what the cross-kick is, but the EIT risk is one of those cross-kicks. It's one of those areas where the KICs, all the KICs actually come together in order to coordinate their activities, but also implement joint activities. And one of these activities, which we are very proud of, is the EIT Jumpstarter, which is currently implemented by 6 KICs. What is the EIT Jumpstarter? Well, the EIT Jumpstarter is a pre-accelerator program which aims to reach out, mentor, train, offer financial support, but most importantly, connect budding startups and individual innovators to give them the necessary skills, the necessary tools, the necessary resources to help them succeed. This is purely targeted to the risk area. So far, we have supported over 550 deep tech startup teams since the program was launched in 2017. The program was also awarded 2 European awards for excellence, which we are very proud of, and I think are a clear testament to the added value and the impact of this program. Actually, tomorrow is the grand final of the EIT Jumpstarter 2021 edition. Out of the 500 or so startup teams which had applied for support in the beginning of this year, we now have 42 which have made it to the final. These 42 tomorrow will be pitching their ideas, and 3 of them will win the grand prize. This would be both a monetary prize, but also a promise for further support to come. So that's it from my side. Again, thank you for your attention. Any questions, very, very welcome. And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Luke, for that very comprehensive presentation. One follow-up, you briefly mentioned it, but can you just really drive this point home about the integration of our main activities, the business, education, and innovation? How are these integrated into the risk program?
Yes, thank you, Angela. And this is something I tried to touch upon in my presentation, but it definitely merits a little bit of further explanation. So as I explained previously, our aim was to raise awareness of what we are able to do for participants. The EIT risk was meant to be a kind of megaphone of what we are able to do, and the megaphone which we would use within those countries where our activities were limited. Now we are shifting our focus. We have seen that we are better known across Europe, and therefore the EIT risk will aim not only to attract new participants, but also fully integrate them within everything that we do as the EIT. And we basically, our main activities are within education, innovation, and business creation, business support. And each of these areas will have a specific risk focus. Now, of course, as I explained, the EIT KICs have a high degree of autonomy in designing how they do this. But in a nutshell, this is how they will be. This is what I mean by being integrated within the core activities of the KICs.
Perfect, very clear. Thank you. And so Luke will be back shortly in the Q&A discussion. I see we already have a question addressed to him, which we'll address. And now I would like to invite back Michal, who's the head of the impact section. And as promised, he'll talk a little bit more about these cross-kick activities that Luke already introduced for us. And this is basically where knowledge and innovation communities work together. But Michal will tell you all about it.
Thank you very much, Angela, and good morning again to all of you. Let me share now also the screen with my second presentation to go to the, probably you may see it now.
Yep.
And then probably I have to change the screen again. Now it's perfect, no?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So the last part for today is about cross-kick activities. This is a special scheme which has been developed for the last 7-8 years. And this scheme is aimed at 3 objectives. It's meeting 3 objectives. First of all, it increases efficiency and effectiveness of operation of the knowledge innovation communities. Secondly, it contributes to strategic objectives of the EIT and the EU. Thirdly, it brings together KICs around the topics which are of the common interest to develop specific products and services. When we started cross-kick activities 7-8 years ago, actually we started with EIT risk activity that Luke partially touched upon, and with education activities. Over the last 6-7 years, number of cross-kick activities increased up to 17. So it's, from one hand, it evidences success of this operational modality. On the other hand, it makes a little bit complicated for the KICs and for the EIT to manage the scheme. So from this year, we changed the approach and we started grouping those activities under 6 clusters, 6 strategic clusters, and still leaving the 7th cluster that I would also describe a little bit more in details as the one for joint cross-kick activities of thematic and innovation nature. So when we developed the scheme, revised the scheme, we created the cluster, the first cluster, which is called EIT Shared Services. And this is a cluster which comprises activities such like EIT KICs, joint EIT House in Brussels, joint CLCs. So, for example, when you go to Stockholm, there were 3 different collocations of 3 different KICs. So we decided that probably they should be merged and there should be one office in Stockholm instead of having 3 different offices. So this is, first of all, increase the effectiveness, efficiency, but also increase visibility of the EIT community. Another activities that are under this scheme are, for example, development of joint IT tools. Of course, it doesn't make any sense that each KICs is developing separately IT tool, especially when we are integrating them into the European Commission IT infrastructure. So these are activities of such a type. Instead of paying to 7 KICs, we are paying to this project, and we are developing one system or trying to rationalize the way how KICs operate. 5 other clusters are more of the strategic nature, addressing the objective of aligning our and EC objectives to implement them in a much more effective way. So the first cluster that is presented on the screen is about strategic outreach, which is about bringing EIT community outside of Europe and developing the offices which are located outside of the EU. And let me give example of 2 offices. One is in Silicon Valley and the second one is in Israel. The next strategic cross-kick activity is a regional innovation activity, which is bringing, and that was just presented by Luke, which brought together EIT risk activity and also the activity that we started developing last year, which was aimed and engaging with the Western Balkan countries. One of the activities that was presented by Luke, Jumpstarter, is exactly part of this cross-kick activity. The third strategic cluster is about synergies. And when we talk about the synergies, we are mainly talking about topics which are of the common interest of more than 1 or 2 KICs. and aligning the agenda, trying to find internal synergies, but also to link with other relevant programs as a community, not as individual kicks. And few examples of such activities that are under this cluster, for example, EIT Cross-Kick on artificial intelligence, EIT Cross-Kick on circular economy, EIT Cross-Kick work package on European Bauhaus. So these are those activities which are very much contributing to the EU flagship initiatives, like in case of AI to Digital Europe, in case of circular economy to the Green Deal, in case of New European Bauhaus to the New European Bauhaus. The next one is about education, and this activity is bringing actions that knowledge innovation communities are jointly implementing under the education umbrella, contributing to the strategic programs of the EU that EIT is also contributing, such like Digital Education Action Plan, or developing new methods, new techniques or modalities in delivering in a more innovative way education activities. Under this scheme, we also recently included actions which are supporting our alumni community. Last but not least is the cross-kick about bringing together kicks in our relation with institutions which may provide or which can be partners for accelerating growth of the activities. Mainly, this is linked with the business creation activities, linking us with European Investment Fund, with European Investment Bank, or European Innovation Council. Last but not least, we have the scheme which is called and the separate cluster, which is about thematic innovation cross-kick activities. This is the scheme which is actually open every 3 years when we are selecting the projects which are aimed at delivering products and services in the domains and areas which are, I would say, covering more than 1 or 2 kicks. So, for example, in the past, we had healthy food cross-kick activity. Now we have in our portfolio such activities like water scarcity or digital test beds in a food or raw material sector. So bringing kicks under the umbrella of activities which are relevant for more than 1 or 2 kicks, trying also to build on the synergies, also involving partners from the kicks. Few more words about key characteristic features of cross-kick activities. So, as this is important activities, I mean, all they're important, but maybe for the strategic relevance and sometimes not really having this clear outcome in the form of products and services, but rather building synergies, those activities are financed up to 100%. And this is about shared services and strategic activities. The thematic innovation activities are financed up to 70% to be very much in line with innovation principles that I mentioned previously when I described how we implement our innovation activities. Talking about the funding, approximately up to 7% of the EIT funding under this time frame perspective will be included for the cross-kick activities, but this also includes the activities with the kicks that partnership agreement will be expired or terminated. So on the annual basis now we are talking about around 30 million euro, which are allocating to cross-kick activities. Cross-kick activities, especially strategic activities and activities aimed at increasing operational efficiency of the kicks, are very closely followed by the EIT, much more closely than the activities in our portfolios, education, business creation, innovation portfolios. We very much follow in a form participating in the steering committee meetings. We also try to navigate the activities towards the objectives of the EIT and the EU. This doesn't refer to the thematic innovation activities, which are very much bottom-up activities and are selected on the competitive basis. We also expect that all the cross-kick activities have to have, to some extent, they have to address to some extent the financial sustainability mechanism, whether in terms of developing the revenue streams, and this is very much relevant for the thematic innovation activities, but in case of the strategic activities, for example, linking with complementary or synergic programs from which the key partners may benefit. Two other points are very self-telling. So in order to be included and to be part of the cross-kick portfolio, then of course, clear cross-kick value added has to be demonstrated in terms of elevated impact or in terms of efficiency gains from the joint activities. Only after demonstrating this, we may consider such activities as a cross-kick activities. Last but not least, all these activities have to contribute to the EIT KPIs, to the EIT monitoring impact framework. The last slide presents a few facts about one of the activity which is under a strategic cluster called Strategic Synergies, which is about our contribution, the EIT response to the new European Bauhaus initiative. And it summarizes the actions and activities that are implemented by 5 kits together under this umbrella. And for 2021-2022, we allocated €5 million to this initiative. And we already launched recently the call for accelerating new European Bauhaus startups. We financing now around 16 initiatives which are engaging citizens in this context. We are running around 150 new European Bauhaus hackathons. And we have also this element which is included in the Jumpstarter program that Luke already described, that we have also a separate topic about new European Bauhaus under this activity, which also shows and demonstrates synergies among not only the kids, but also among the cross-kick activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michal, for the presentation. So now we'll go straight into the Q&A discussion. I'll invite all our speakers back, and we have a running clock against us, so everybody buckle in. We're just going to go through as many as we can, and I'd like to ask our speakers to just give short, concise, clear to the point answers. So Marianne, you're first. In Germany, education is free of charge. Our audience member asks, how can then education help the kid to become more financially sustainable?
Thank you for the question. I think this has several dimensions to the problem. First of all, I would say we don't expect the education activities and such to generate strong revenues. It's very important that we design them to be sustainable in the long run, and we understand that what are the difficulties in specific national ecosystem or special national conditions, national education rules and environment. But it's not only about student participation fees or fees collected from students. There are also other ways of how these programs can be designed to be sustainable at international level. So there are a lot of other available public funding that can support the development of the programs beyond the EIT funding, using other EU instruments, starting from Erasmus Plus for mobility, for example, or other other tools. National level, but also very good potential source on how to support development of these programs are the industry and business partners. So I would suggest to really think about how to engage the industry partners so they can sponsor, they can support financing of development of these programs, because it will bring them a lot of value in terms of excellent access to the pool of excellent talent, and actually helping them solving the concrete problems. So there are a lot of other ways. We also, of course, understand that in some countries it's not about the participation costs.
Perfect, very clear, thank you. And Laurent, second question is for you. Does the 3.9 billion euro funding raised or capital raised that you mentioned in your slide, does that refer to private and public funding, or only private investment?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It mostly private funding. So as I was saying in my presentation, angels and VCs and institutional investors that are investing in let's say high growth companies that we support.
Perfect. Okay. And Michal, next question's for you. Can non-KIC partners also receive funding through the innovation projects, or is there different criteria for them to join non-KIC partners?
No, of course they can, and actually one of the way how we expect from the KICs to drive and prepare the calls is to ensure that openness is ensured, the principle of openness is ensured, that also non-KIC partners may apply for the funding. Of course, there are different types of the schemes, and each KIC is free to define its scheme. But in general, there is one rule that building the membership program, access to the funding shouldn't be the value added. The value added should be somewhere else. Access to the network, access to different types of the services that are developed by the KICs.
Perfect, thank you. And Luke, the next question is for you. Are the RIS hubs financed completely by the RIS budget? How are they selected? Are there open calls by RIS countries or countries eligible for RIS on a regular basis?
Yes, thank you, Angela. It's a very good question, and I'm glad this was asked. Firstly, let me explain very, very quickly what is a RIS hub. A RIS hub is an entity, organization, based within the countries targeted by the RIS scheme, which have a contract with the KICs to provide hub services on their behalf. So yes, first question is whether they are financed completely from the RIS budget. Mostly they are. They do bring a degree of co-funding, and we aim to increase this degree of funding over the next years in order to ensure their sustainability. How are they selected? They're selected following open competitive call. And yes, there are open calls on a regular basis. I believe that as we speak, there is a number of calls currently running by EIT Energy for the establishment of RIS hubs by the end of this year. So the process should be finalized. At least the call will be closed by the end of this year. So in a nutshell, RIS hubs are selected following an open process, and there are regular calls which one can apply for if they are interested in.
Perfect, thank you. And if you're interested in what Luke mentioned, you go on our website or opportunities page, you can see that open call by InnoEnergy for the RIS hubs. And now, Marianne, we come back to you. The question says, where do master courses take place, and maybe extend where can they take place?
It is very important to understand that EIT as such, or nor KICs themselves, are not per se education offering providers or education program providers. All these programs are designed, developed, and delivered and executed with the education partners of the KICs, higher education institutions, universities, or depending on the level. So the students actually take courses and take place at the university where the program is hosted, and it then depends on how the program is structured. So in some cases you have a double degree, and that means there is a combination of different universities, even in different countries. Good example is EIT Master, EIT Digital Master School, where it's always a combination in their program of entry year you spend at one university, and exit year, second year, you spend in a different university. Plus, in addition, sometimes you have placements at the businesses that then you work close with, and then you go for summer schools, for example, to somewhere else. programs. So it's also international and cross-organizational mobility present. So, but obviously now that we have COVID and the programs are facing the COVID, then the programs also has to address this situation. So sometimes we have the virtual learning and online learning implemented in the programs as well.
Thank you. Perfect. And Laurent, we're coming back to you. The question is the support activity of women leadership, is that a cross-KIC activity, or does that belong to the usual education activities of the KIC?
So good question. Thanks for asking. Actually, both. So it is a separate cross-KIC activity with dedicated funding, with, of course, very closely steering from the EIT level and with particular KIC that is leading this cross-KIC activity based on their experience, their expertise. Really, all KICs are participating there, but also it's mainstream in many ways in the main activities of the KICs, and has been for several years already. So in the selection processes, the KICs are really, abiding by the gender mainstreaming policy document that we have, kind of principles they have to follow. So they are integrated, based on these principles, that they are designing their processes, both the selection, but also the implementation of the activities following these gender principles. So we try to approach the problem from all sides. And again, we work closely with our partners in the Commission, including European Innovation Council on this, and many other partners we have at the EIT level to make a big impact there.
Thank you. And Luke, we come back to you. Which types of impact investors do you expect to be interested in risk countries? Could you elaborate on the timeframes and types of financial backing as essential support to foster innovation in these countries or regions? It's a big question, maybe.
Yes, I'll try my best to answer it within the limited time we have, Angela. And thank you very much to the person who asked this question. So first and foremost, I think all types of investors are interested in investing in the risk countries, and we have seen this happening. We strongly believe as the EIT in the huge innovation potential of the risk area, and it is our job to highlight where that potential exists and bring it to attention of investors. We have seen some great examples of success. Skeleton Technologies, for example, a company based in Estonia, is now worth well over $200 million. A centaur, I believe it's known as, and is very much on the way of becoming a unicorn in the next years. So therefore, I think one can very quickly conclude that there is potential in the risk areas, and through the risk, we want to make sure that that potential is equipped with the necessary tools, necessary skills in order to make it big. In terms of timeframes, we don't have specific timeframes in mind. The EIT risk will continue to operate over the next 7 years. And I am sure that it has a strong future over the next year. So we're in the long run. In terms of financial backing, types of financial backing can vary, depends on the specificities of each KIC. However, I want to highlight that the EIT risk is not just another funding opportunity. The EIT risk aims to step in to connect, and this is where we believe its added value truly lies, the place-based approach I spoke about, being able to offer opportunities to innovators wherever they are based. So we aim to connect innovators wherever they are to our pan-European network to offer them whatever they need, whether it is finance, yes, venture capital, of course, we do that in a quite a big way, but also talent, test beds. We offer them the clients, we offer them partners, we offer them all sorts of opportunities. And this is, all these dimensions is where I believe the EIT risk can really bring an added value and have impact in the countries and regions where we target.
Thank you, Luke. And our last question, Laurent, if we may, another big one. Do the KICs now create their own venture capital funds?
Yes, thanks for the question. That's a very valid question because we talk a lot about financing, startups, and scale up. So just to keep the answer short, is again here we are. KICs have great degree of autonomy, but we have principles there for them to follow on establishing their own KIC funds initiative. to make sure that these initiatives are coherent, but also regular and ready to invest in the most promising startup and scale up. So that's one part. So far, also, based on the existing kicks that we have, only 2 of them have started their own kick funds initiative. One that maybe the audience has heard about is the EIT Health Venture Center of Excellence in collaboration with European Investment Fund. And then the second one is EIT Food, that has started a Food Sparks, which is a 30 million euro investment fund with other investors. So these funds are ready. Obviously, the money that goes into these funds is not EIT money. It can be EIT owned funds, but more frequently we see that the kicks are acting as operators of these funds. They are facilitating the deal flow, in bringing in investors and getting a success fee out of these investment being made. They are not investing their own funds, but they are just acting as a catalyzer in a way in their respective industries, such as the health sector or the food sector, to bring in the relevant investors around these investment funds. And they're doing it in partnerships with bigger, more experienced investors, such as the European Investment Fund or even the European Investment Bank. But we welcome any initiatives that the future kick, maybe this kick will want to do this. We have principles. We also have a lesson learned from the first few kicks that have go on to create their own kick fund initiative, and we can share those with the new kicks to, again, at the end of the day, it's about funding innovative European level startup and scale up, so to make sure they have the financing they need to grow.
Perfect, thank you, super clear. And I would like to thank our audience members as well for being so engaging in our discussions, and of course for attending our 3rd webinar series. You have been all very wonderful, and thank you to our speakers today for their excellent presentations. So we look forward to you joining our last webinar on the 7th of December at 10 o'clock, where you'll learn more about EIT Synergies with other EU programs and other EU programs that already do support culture and creative sectors and industries. And also you can still submit your questions for that. It's open, the registration is open on our website, and our Slido is open there as well if you want to submit anything beforehand. So we hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and best of luck with drafting the proposals. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.